everyone. My name is Duni and I'm from Drew Academy. This is where we support people in enhancing their well-being, even if they have experienced a loss. Now, we've been talking about well-being tips for the last few weeks, and I want to honor you and thank you for joining me today. Now, today, we're going to talk about something that is very important for ourselves and for others as well. It's going to help us in our building of relationships with others and actually also help us in improving ourselves even more. What we're going to talk about today is how to listen more attentively. Okay? So, listening is quite different from hearing. When you listen, you use your entire being to be present. Okay? Now, you need to be more aware, more mindful of the way you listen to fully take what is being said to you. When you listen, you're listening, you're perceiving what is said and what is not said. You're looking at the gestures, the body language. You're listening for the pitch, the tone, the volume, the different aspects of that person's that is relating to you. And it is such an important skill that, when done properly, can bring an end to conflict, or conflict will not even arise if you listen more attentively. It will help you understand better. So it will help whether you're a student or you're a worker, you will do your work more efficiently. So it helps career-wise as well. Now, listening attentively is a very important skill. It cannot be overemphasized. So how do we do it? Before we get into doing it, I think it's very important for us to understand the time, the little basic things, sciences behind listening. Now, research has shown that the average span of humans is 22 seconds when they are paying your attention to you. So if you were supposed to pitch something to someone, you really should get your message out in the first 22 seconds, not later. But because we are talking about how to improve our listening, so we're hoping that we can stretch it a little bit more than 22 seconds in this section. Okay? So, many people, when they listen, me included, if I don't listen properly, if I'm not attentive, I tend not to get as much information. I probably get about 20 to 40% of what's being said. And we have a forgetting curve. So the person has told me something. Either maybe I went to a lecture, or I had a conversation with someone, or I had an interaction in any other way. I go away 1 hour after, I've forgotten 90% of that 40 or maybe 20% I had picked up from that conversation. But when I listen more attentively, I'll have a huge bulk of information, which, even if I lost 90% of that, at least I have something tangible that I could hold on to or apply as required. Okay? Right. So, ways to listen. Last week we talked about mindfulness. We're talking about attention to the breath. And that is a very good tool for being more self-aware. In today's section, we're going to talk about this practical tool called mindful listening. It's very similar to mindfulness, and that's why I decided it would be a very good idea to kind of put the sessions kind of close to each other, so you kind of relate what you learned last week to what we're learning this week. So, with mindful listening, you can do it as picking a time in the day where you are listening to someone mindfully, or you can do it in such a way that you're picking a time when you're by yourself and you're practicing how to listen in your own environment. Okay, so we're going to talk about how to do both. Most of the time, I would suggest, because we're all busy people, we all have things we're doing, set your alarm or your timer to 5 minutes. Start with 5 minutes and build from there. You don't have to make it too big a task like I'm going to sit down and mindfully listen for 30 minutes or 2 hours. No, that's going to be exhausting. So start with 5 minutes. If you feel 5 minutes is too long, bring it down to 2 minutes and just set your timer. When the alarm goes or when the timer rings, then you know that, oh yeah, my 2 minutes is up, and then you can continue. But the more you do it, the more improved your mindful listening will become. Okay? Remember, mindfulness is such a good tool that helps you to expand the muscle of whatever it is you're trying to increase your awareness, either your self awareness or your active listening capabilities. Okay? So, first thing is set an intention. What do you want to do? And you want to practice listening more attentively. Good. And sometimes it might be useful to also say why you want to do this. Maybe you're hoping to build a better relationship with your colleagues, with your people, with your family members, with your friends, or maybe you feel that you're not learning as much in school, or you're struggling with work and you want to kind of increase your ability to focus at work. All these, whatever your why is, will be a motivation for you. The next thing is set a time. When you set a time, you can say, well, I'll do it in the morning. Some people would say as soon as they wake up, as soon as they get up from the bed, when the alarm goes off, they go sit down somewhere, they sit on the edge of the bed and they do it then. That's a good way because kind of you have to get out of bed anyway. So you might as well link this new habit to something you're already doing. Or you might say, I will do it on my lunch break at work. So you set the alarm, you set an alarm for that time at lunch break, or you do it after dinner. But something, set a time, schedule it, and you get it done. Okay? Now, to the main details of it. Now that you've set an intention and set a time, the next thing is to find a place. Be still. If you're doing it, practice for yourself in your environment. You're not practicing with somebody else. Pick an environment that you can feel comfortable in. You're still. You don't want it somewhere that is too quiet because you are trying to practice how to hear things. So if it's too quiet, you might not hear anything. But where you're going to be still. If you're picking the practice with somebody, make sure that you don't have so many distractions. So for example, when you start this, you're not going to pick a very big cafe or restaurant to practice mindful listening. It might be very distracting. Okay, so maybe it can be a situation whereby you're at home with this person or you're in office with closed doors and you can have this session where you are practicing to actively listen. Okay, so, and you need to be still. If you were practicing by yourself, what we suggest to reduce and minimize distraction is to close your eyes. And if you don't want to close your eyes, you can just have a soft gaze. Okay? Now, if you are with somebody else and you're practicing how to mindfully listen to somebody, please do not close your eyes. Maintain eye contact. Look the person straight in the eyes, and if possible, add some body movement like nodding, nudging, following the person's discussion. Not inappropriately, not in a way that looks like you're just, batting your head around. No, you don't want that. You want something that makes the person, when you're listening, you will know whether it's a situation whereby you are, it's time for you to nod or it's time for you to shake your head to the sides, or it's time for you to go, oh dear, you would know what to do when you're listening actively. But responding to cues might be a very good way, okay? But make sure you're having eye contact. So back to our practice. When you're doing it by yourself, when you're still, eyes closed or in a soft gaze, we say start with breaths. Remember how we did mindfulness breathing? That's the same thing. Breath is so important. Now, when you're all like bent over and taking very shallow breaths, you have a lot of dead space in your lungs. When you have your shoulders back, relaxed, head up straight, you open up your chest wall. So, and then you take a deep breath. It fills your lungs. The dead space, most of it is gotten rid of, if not all. Now, when you get rid of that dead space, the amount of oxygen that is available for all the cells in your body, the amount of oxygen that is available for every part of your body, including your brain, is going to be much more increased. And when you have more oxygen supply to your brain cells, they function better. So, very importantly, take deep breaths. It nourishes you and also calms you down. Okay, so that makes you more grounded and present in the moment. The next thing is listen for the sounds. When you're by yourself, listen for what you can hear. If you're sat in maybe you're somewhere in your house, you might be able to hear the ticking clock, or you might be able to hear a humming or buzzing from one of your electronics. You might be able to hear a family member, a neighbor by the roadside, some children playing outside. You might hear a tweeting bird. Whatever it is, just pay attention and listen for what you can hear. Okay, so you need to pay attention to what you can hear. Now, we all know that we all have thoughts. I mean, our mind is working all the time. We have thoughts coming in left, right, center. Sometimes we have feelings that are quite overwhelming, and we kind of get drawn into those things, the thoughts and the feelings and emotions. When you have those thoughts, you can say quietly, thinking. And like we did in mindfulness meditation, you bring yourself back to the sound. Okay? Now, when you have an emotion or feeling coming up and bubbling up, and you're thinking, oh my goodness, I'm feeling angry now, I'm feeling quite impatient, this is rubbish, then it's feeling, and you bring yourself back to the sound. Now, something we need to also do when we are paying attention to the sound is just being aware that the sound is there. So you're not judging the sound. Is this the sound of my bike, or is the sound of the wind, or is the sound of a bird? No, you're not analyzing the sound. You're perceiving the sound. You're just aware that it's there. Okay? Now, same thing. If you were practicing with someone and you were just about to start your conversation, you take a couple of deep breaths and you sit down. Right, so let's get to this discussion. And you're having the eye contact and they're talking to you. You're nodding appropriately with what the person is saying, or shaking your head appropriately, whichever way works. Then you find out that you have what the person is saying to you. You're not going to be breaking it down to say, oh, right, so this person is saying this. Does that mean that the person is upset with what I did? Or does this person feel that that other person did not treat them properly? Don't analyze what the person is saying. Be present and hear. Listen to what the person is saying. Do not judge it. Do not analyze it. Just take it in. See it as it is. Okay? That is the way to pay attention. Now, when you do that, if you were doing it by yourself, you probably would have set your timer when you started at, say, either 2 minutes or 5 minutes, whichever one you decide to start with, and of course you're going to build up. And when you just keep going until your timer rings. Remember, there's nobody who practices mindfulness that is 100% all the time. So you might feel that, oh my goodness, this is just a waste. I've just spent time and I've not been able to achieve much. I've not been able to have this mindful connection with my listening ability. No, be kind to yourself. Show yourself some love. You've taken the right step. You've taken the right step in the direction that you want to go. It's a muscle. Listening attentively is a muscle. You need to keep practicing the mindfulness technique, and you'll get better. Okay, so these are things you can kind of incorporate into your daily life. You can obviously do it a couple of times a day, and then prolong it. Start from 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. And if you feel that you're struggling one day and you can't really keep up, you can bring it back. It's flexible. Okay, so these are the kind of tips that we can use to help us to increase our mindfulness towards listening. It's helping us to listen more attentively. Many people I've spoken with about this technique have started using it and they saw some improvement. They felt a connection with the people they have a relationship with. They had a connection with their colleagues. They had a better understanding of things that they read. Now, if you were a student, um, that usually that kind of it really does help, and that's one of the reasons why people talk about the Pomodoro technique, where you focus on maybe you're watching or listening to a topic or a lecture, or you're doing a particular task. Being focused on that thing does help. You don't make it too long. So people use that to listen, probably a bit more mindfully, like being more present. That's, of course, as you get more experienced with it. And that does help with retention and your ability to make good notes from what you're hearing. Okay? So I hope this has helped. I hope that you found this useful. And I next time we're going to talk about another very important tip we can use to improve our wellness and our well-being and that of people around us. Okay? So once again, this is Juni from Drew Academy. Please share this message with anybody you know that will benefit from this. Like it, share it, and until next week when we have another very interesting tip to share. That's bye from me. Take care and have a lovely week.